I think we're having a massive winter.
Oh, I'll take.
Yeah.
Yeah. Years ago, I shaved beard in February. Okay. Good evening. I'm Joe Wagner. Welcome to Candidates Night 2. Candidates for the state legislative districts in which Lyman is located have been invited. Appearing tonight are Al Schutz, candidate for the Maine State District 32, which includes Arundel, Biddeford, Hollis, Dayton, Lyman. John Eder, candidate for Maine House District 136, which includes Alfred, a portion of Waterboro, and a portion of Lyman. And Wayne Parry, candidate and current incumbent running for re-election to Maine House District 140, which includes Arundel, Dayton, and a part of Lyman. Now, if you are uncertain as to which House district you reside in, you can refer to a map posted in Town Hall or go online to maine.gov, and House districts will show those maps. Tonight's event is being broadcast and recorded on YouTube. Please silence all phones. Questions posed to the candidates were developed from the input from Lyman residents. They are the same questions posed to the candidates that appeared on the first candidates night held here on October 1. Now, to be consistent, there was no opportunity for questions from the audience on October 1, so no questions from the audience will be entertained tonight as well. Now, I'll turn things over to our moderator this evening, Michelle Filicetti, who will go over the specifics of tonight's format. Thank you.
Good evening. Welcome to Candidate Night. Your opportunity to vote for the candidate you're choosing will be after the election in November. Tonight's forum will be conducted in a respectful, courteous, and professional manner. The moderator will be the deciding factor in matters of conduct and the pertinence of questions. Questions or comments deemed by the moderator to be unprofessional, disrespectful, discourteous, rude, or irrelevant will not be allowed. Persons exhibiting unprofessional, disrespectful, discourteous, disruptive, or rude behavior will be given a warning and will be required to leave. Tonight's forum is not a debate. It is an opportunity to hear opinions and ideas, thoughts, goals, and experiences of those running for office. Tonight is not a session for direct questions to the candidates. It says, however, you'll have an opportunity where we did not allow questions at the last candidates night. We will not be allowing questions this evening, to be fair to both parties. Each candidate will have 2 minutes, and that's actually adjusted. I gave everyone 3 minutes at the last meeting, so you'll have 3 minutes to introduce yourselves and 3 minutes to respond to questions asked. And each candidate will also address the moderator when responding. Because this is about the audience members. The moderator will present the question to the candidates that was posed, ask the question to be rephrased, or, oh yeah, that's about that. You can ask questions, we don't need that one either. Once all questioning is completed, each candidate will be given 3 minutes to make closing statements. Closing statements will be factual, polite, and professional. Closing statements will not be directed at other candidates, individuals, or public officials. So I am Michelle Filicetti, and if it's okay, I'm going to call you all by your first name. I just like to keep it kind of casual and friendly. So if that's okay. And then I also just started left to right last time, so I'm going to do the same thing with the questions, if that's okay with everybody. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Whatever you like.
Okay, so we'll just do it easy. Just keep it easy, do the same. So we'll start off with 3 minutes to go ahead and introduce yourself and whatever you'd like to say to start off. Go ahead, John.
Thank you so much. I want to thank the moderators for putting this together. I wasn't able to make the last one, and I appreciate you redoing your schedule so that I can make it. We just had a son, a newborn son, and we were in Boston Children's for 3 weeks. He was getting surgery for spina bifida, so I'm pretty tired, if you might remember what it's like with a newborn, but I'm really glad for the opportunity to be here. My name is John Eder, and I'm running for the Maine State House for one primary reason, and that's so that I can tell my kids and look them in the eye that I did everything that I could to defend our freedoms and to keep this state for Mainers, to protect parents' rights, to re-inject some common sense into the conversation. I served in the legislature 20 years ago. I actually was on the left, but I became a Republican because I got tired of seeing good, hardworking people denigrated for their political choices. And I think now that the Republican Party is more the party of working people and small businesses. I'd like to do everything that I can to keep seniors in their homes. Our trades are languishing, and we need good jobs for our youth. And I would like to do everything that I can. I served on the school board, and I watched a lot of kids get pushed to college to the exclusion of the trades and vocation. And now we see the trades are really dying, and I would like to have those jobs for our kids. And so I'd like to do everything I can to reinvigorate the trades and get kids back into the trades. And I'd like to get education back to basics. I feel we've done too many experimental education and social emotional learning and talking to children about things that they really shouldn't be talked about their gender, about them being racist and so forth. And I feel like our education has really suffered because of all these experimental social emotional programs. And I'd like to get our education back to basics. It's in the basement right now. We used to be top in math and science and reading. My wife is a teacher at Kennebunk High School, and she can attest to the fact that kids are really suffering, particularly because they were locked away in their homes during COVID. And kids can't read and they can't do math. And this is really a travesty because we were among the top in the country. We were ranked top in the country. So I'd like to do that. I'd like to get education back to basics. I'm endorsed by the NRA, by my outgoing predecessor, Heidi Sampson, by Donna Ring, John Moran, and Dave Woodson. And I'd like your vote. I'd say a vote for me is a vote for common sense.
Thank you so much. Right here.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you, Michelle, for moderating, and thanks, Joe, for putting this together. I think this is a great opportunity for the people in Lyman to get to meet the candidates a little bit more personally. One thing that I've learned about going around and talking to people in Dayton, Rundle, and Lyman is everybody's working. So a lot of times going around door to door, there's very few people home because they're out working. Like myself, I'm a lobsterman in my real job, and but I've enjoyed my 6 terms in the legislature. I've served all 6 terms on the Transportation Committee. What I have found being on the Transportation Committee is you literally get to help every single person in the community, because every single person in the community drives on the roads. And transportation system is probably one of our most important things in Maine, since we are at the end of the line when it comes to the United States. And we need to bolster our transportation needs. Being on the committee, it's nice that, after 6 terms, when I make a call to the commissioner, he answers the phone. And one quick little story. I was sitting with Brad Nickel one Friday afternoon, just before they were going to repave South Waterboro Road. And Brad had me come over and he said, "Wayne, what's going on here? DOT's coming to pave this and they're not doing any shim." And I go, "What do you mean they're not doing any shim?" Because that's something they always do before they put the light capital paving on the roads. And they weren't going to do any. So I'm sitting in Brad's truck. I call the commissioner, and the commissioner says, "Yes, we always do shim. Let me make some phone calls." And it was like 4:00 on Friday. So he says, "I don't know if I can get back to anybody right now, but they will call Brad Monday." And they called Brad Monday. They came down and did a ride and ended up doing 500 ton of shim. It's things like that you can, get things done for the communities, especially here in Lyman. And I've been one that has tried to get to every town meeting. And anybody that goes to the town meetings regularly knows I think I've missed 2 out of the 12 years. And so I try to get there because a lot of times there's questions. 2 of my most heartfelt moments actually happened at town meeting when longtime selectman Leo Rule got up and said some unbelievably nice things to me about, how much I had done for Lyman. And then Morris Sinclair, every time I drive through Lyman, I think of Morris. And he got up and talked about an issue that we had on Davis Road on 35 that kept flooding. And he says, I keep calling DOT, they don't come. And so I was able to make some phone calls, and they came within about 3 weeks and got it taken care of so that corner doesn't flood anymore. So, two of my real good moments came here in Lyman, even though we have 3 towns. One thing to let the people of Lyman know, you have 2 representatives in Augusta. Most towns have 1. And the advantage is I realize that it's a problem sometimes figuring exactly where the line is in which district you're in. But the advantage to having 2 is you have 2 advocates for Lyman. So I've always looked at it when people bring it up, that's a huge benefit to Lyman. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Adam?
Boy, following Wayne Perry is definitely not one of the greatest things. I'm Al Schutz, and I'm not a regular Mainer. I came from upstate New York in 2010 to take over the shuttle bus system. And as Wayne says, transportation is very near and dear to my heart. That system was in $400,000 in the red going down. We had board meetings every week. That's how critical it was. Took me 4 years to bring that back, and Wayne was a big help. When I first met him, I knew I was talking to somebody who knew this and knew what was needed. We built the system up. We set a trolley record, 144,000 riders. It was 2018 when I retired from there. So I've been retired. I came into the game late. I don't know if anybody knows, but the prior candidate had some health issues, and they came 63 days to me and said, would you consider it? And then, 5 years of retirement, I said, maybe I need to get back in the game, and maybe we need to make these transportation systems. There's so many different things that we did, and Wayne knows a lot of the things that Shuttle Bus did, aligning with Greyhound, and, the Zoom service was, things like that. So I want to bring that, what I want to do in the Senate is I want to bring that back, the DOT, working with the DOT, making sure that we can get to the people of Lyman out here to get groceries, whatever, medical transportation. We don't even have real cab systems that really work for the people. And, that's my mainstay. That's a bipartisan thing, as opposed to other things. I believe in what I was as a kid. Right is right and wrong is wrong. And no matter what you spin it, it's not going to be any different. It's still. And what I want to bring to the Senate is that kind of energy to say, hey, let's fix this. It's, we're struggling. I'm a senior citizen. I'm 64. I know what it's like to, I wasn't struggling as bad a few years ago, but it's become a different thing. And so I think it was a calling for me to, I think called me off the couch and said, you keep running your mouth. Now you do something. Now you put your money where your mouth is. And so that's why I'm here. And I just hope to, support a Lyman. I'll be here. I'm right down the road on Thompson. So Lyman's very close. I come up for coffee every day at Harry's over there. So I'm good.
All right, thank you so much.
Thanks.
So I'll start with the questions, and if you hit your 3, I'll kind of let you know you hit your 3, and I usually give you an extra minute after that to finish up. So that's what I did the last time, and I'll do the same procedure with this one. These are all questions that were submitted by email by the residents of Lyman. I tried to combine some of them because some of them were the same, so they might be a little wonky, and I'll try my best to word them properly. And but I tried not to change anything that they sent me to be included. So we'll start off with Wayne. You're going to be first. If you were to be elected, what goals or agenda do you have for your time in service?
Should we go back to 2010?
You do what you need to do.
Yeah. No, my focus is, as I mentioned before, on transportation, and that one of the few, which has been a frustration over the last few years with one-party rule, is there's been very little bipartisanship, and there's way too much, 80, 71 votes that, one side's on one side and one side's on the other side. And it's just, it's not a good way to govern. When one party rules everything, the other side's just forgotten about. And that's got to change. As I said, the one bipartisan thing that happened over the last 2 years was, after working on it for about 10 years, I was able to get 40% of the sales tax moved into highway fund when you buy new vehicles or any vehicle. So I always looked at it that it was 100% road use. Why wouldn't it go to the roads? And I was able to get bipartisan support out of the Transportation Committee. I was also able to get the governor to agree. And once we got the governor's agreement and with a majority in the Transportation Committee for making that change, we were able to get it through the House and the Senate unanimously. It was part of the highway fund budget. So it really worked out well. The advantage of the sales tax over the gas tax is relatively flat. With adding the sales tax piece, as you all know, vehicles always go up in price. So that's an ability to collect more for highways without adding a new tax or without increasing a tax, because it's based on sale price. So that was one thing that I think that I will continue to do. If we get to 100% of the vehicle sales tax into the highway fund, it gets you as close as you can to fully funding highway. And if you can get to fully funding highway, we can stop putting patches on our roads and start rebuilding some roads. Another advantage of getting the sales tax moved is that's an automatic transfer to the highway fund. By having that automatic transfer, the DOT, the commissioner, can look out several years because it's a sustainable funding source. Unlike bonding, you never know if the bond's going to pass. They usually do, but you never know. You have to wait until after the bond passes. By having this sustainable fund, DOT can go after discretionary grants and get extra money from the federal government they couldn't normally do. So that'll be just one of my focuses, my main focus. And we need to do more for the nursing homes. We need to do more for the main veterans homes. They get put behind. They get tiny funding when we need to be double or triple or quadruple the amount of funding for those, and take care of our long-term Mainers. They seem to be getting put to the back of the line. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, and Alan, you are next. Do you want me to repeat the
Yes,
question?
please, would you?
All right, the question is, if you were to be elected, what goals or agenda do you have for your time in service?
Well, my goals and agenda are just having some kind of fiscal responsibility. Working with DOT, and I'm a transportation advocate just like Wayne. And there's so much more. The veterans, where's our transportation? Some of the senior citizens who need to get groceries and things like that. If we bolster our infrastructure in the Biddeford area, Lyman and all the other areas now become more like suburbs, as opposed, if you've got a robust transit system. So I would look at that. I know Bruce Van Note's still the commissioner, correct? Yep, Bruce, I know him personally. I worked with him when I was at Shuttle Bus. And there's so many things that we can do for this area to make it easier for people, because we are the oldest state in the union. We have per capita, that's correct, at least what I read. And what about the nursing homes? What about the veterans homes? What about those things? I'm with Wayne on that. That would be something I would definitely be interested in looking into and making sure we're putting the resources where they need to be, not just squandered somewhere else where that's not really a need or a cause that we need to address at this point. So, it's a learning curve for me. And I always, I laugh, it's a vertical learning curve, because I was just enjoying life. And you know what, but this is something that I do want to learn and bring that same leadership skills that I brought the shuttle bus to bring that out of the hole, to bring the state out of the hole. So we're not property taxes. I don't want to see my property taxes go up. We got more building. I go, why are my property taxes not going down? You spread that out over more buildings and more businesses that want to come here. So that's mostly the focus I would be at. Transportation and building the businesses that go around it.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
And John, do you need me to repeat the question?
No,
Are you all
that's
set?
good.
Good to go? Okay, go right ahead.
If I were elected, my goals and agenda would be, I mentioned up front that I want to get our education back to basics. Especially going door to door, I've seen how many seniors are suffering who can't keep their homes. Those are homes that could go to their children, their grandchildren. I'd like to take those homes that we already have for Mainers and keep them in the family, since we know it's very difficult for young people to buy a home these days. So my agenda would be to re-implement that property tax freeze for seniors and make that more robust to get a broader range of income, because I know that doesn't serve everybody as it was, but we can improve on it. That was reversed in the last legislature, and we need to bring that back. Also, I would like to, like I said, reinvigorate the trades so that we can get good paying jobs for our kids right out of high school, rather than them incurring college debt, so that they have a chance to rent a home, buy a home. And those would be my priorities.
Thank you so much. All right, so we're on to question number 2, and Al will be starting with you.
Oh, boy.
Brace yourself now. Why do you want to serve our community as our representative, and what do you view as your primary role in serving if elected?
Well, service to me it goes back to when I was in the military. I went in when I was 19 years old and wasn't very popular at that time in 1979. We were just getting out of Vietnam. And, to me, you're always serving. If you're going to get into a job like this, and I've dealt with a lot of politicians, I've worked for cities, governments, they're there to represent the people. And it should be very easy for them to say, is that better for the people or not? So it's going to be something that I really, really concentrate on, is making it better. I don't know what to say, but I'm still very new at it, so I'm going to do my best shot. I was pulled off the bench, so I'm going to do it the best I can for the people. My service just goes back to when I was a kid, and I still think this is just another act of service to me. It was a call, I guess, if you want to call it. So, but I don't like the way the country's going. And these are, from my background, these are the people that we were staring against over the fence, and now they're here. So, we have to do something about that. We got to take care of Americans first. It's great, other countries, but we still got U.S. citizens that are suffering, veterans, people in nursing homes, all the other people. So that's my goal, is just to keep concentrating on that.
Great, thank you so much. And John, do you need me to repeat the question, or are you good to go?
Oh, this is number 2?
Number 2, yes.
Yeah.
You good with that?
Yeah.
Okay, go right ahead.
I've served in the legislature before. I'm not going up there to party or glad hand, or I'm there to make difficult choices. And I'd like to get over the divisiveness and bring back common sense and defend our rights, our First Amendment, our Second Amendment, which makes the First Amendment possible, defend parents' rights. I've done my time in service, and one thing that I know that I was able to do when I served in the legislature before is be a connector between state government and my constituents. Make sure that they're availing themselves of all the programs like the homestead exemption, rent and property tax relief that they can possibly get. And I found that if I would pick up the phone and make that call, sometimes I could push things along, whereas they were meeting with a lot of red tape. So I really enjoyed doing my constituent service and getting to know and help people. And that's one thing that I know that a state legislator can excel at, is helping people get their needs met. And that's why I'm going to go.
Thank you so much. Wayne, do you need me to repeat the question for you? Okay, go right ahead.
Since this is my 6th term, I'm going into my 7th term, it's always been about the people and about the communities. It's one of those deals that you have to listen to everybody. Maybe my biggest frustration with being a representative is when somebody calls you and the department that they're dealing with isn't taking care of them. And it's frustrating that they have to get me involved when the department should be taking care of it in the first place. On simple things that they can send out a form, and they don't send out a form until I call. Things like that is very frustrating for me, because I expect the state government, when a constituent calls them, to take care of them. you know. It does make me feel good when I can help somebody or when I can help the town on an issue that they're having, you know, depending on what it is. But I think that, you know, the biggest thing is listening to the people. And one thing I've always tried to do is I've always tried to return every email and every phone call if possible. I'm sure I've missed some, but I try to do my best on getting back to, you know, everybody and, you know, and hearing their concerns about issues and stuff like that. And it's really important for anybody serving to, you know, be available to, you know, and answer those emails or those calls. You know, that's why I've put out my personal cell phone number. And, you know, I tell people if you're going to call during the day, I'm probably on the boat. I probably won't hear the phone ring. Leave a message, leave a text, and I'll get back to you. You know, so, you know, I've always tried to do that. And I think that's the most important thing is listening to the people.
Thank you so much. So we're going to be on question number 3. We'll be starting with John. Question number 3, Maine businesses are finding it increasingly more difficult to not only hire but retain workers due to the lack of housing and high cost of living, high taxes, the cost of housing, the inability to find and keep workers. A 1% payroll tax is due to be implemented next year for the paid family leave program. Maine is now ranked as the 3rd highest taxed state in the nation with the 10th highest income tax. So with high taxes, the cost of housing, the inability to find and keep workers, how are businesses to keep going? How are we to attract people to Maine if we can't offer an affordable wage and affordable housing?
Well, like I've said previously, I've talked to some businesses in my district, and they've talked about the inability to find skilled workers and also the inability to house those skilled workers should they be lucky to find some skilled workers. Again, the fact that we have taken things like shop class and home economics out of the schools, even somebody learning how to do retail sales work, we've put that aside for an education that really isn't serving our kids these days. So, I spoke with the Folsoms who make furniture, took over their family's business, make furniture in Alfred, and they said, we can't really, when we do find people, they can't afford to live around here. I don't know necessarily that business owners do want to get into the landlord business, but I'd like to look into some sort of tax incentive that we can do to benefit employers if they should want to put up housing for their employees or house them in some way. I know when I worked in Bar Harbor, when I first came to Maine years ago, they would put you up in housing because there's no place to find to live in the summer. So I'd be interested in that. And in all cases, I'd like to reduce taxes and fees and burdens on our businesses, streamline. I know that several businesses that in my district were having trouble just getting their approvals so that they could open up food service businesses. And some of them were suffering badly. I don't know that they'll survive because they waited so long just to suffer through all the red tape. So I'd like to do everything I can to support our small businesses. I think the Republican Party is a party of small businesses. That's why I'm Republican. And I'd like to get kids back into the trades so that we have skilled workers that our own kids and not illegal aliens from over the border can take these jobs and get good paying jobs right out of high school without college debt.
All right, thank you. Green, you're next. Do you need to repeat the question?
No.
You got it? All right, go right ahead.
Yeah, that 1% payroll tax it's great in theory. It could be a real big problem down the road. The way the law was written, there's no guardrails on how much the tax can go up. If they need money, they can just raise the tax without legislative approval. Cost of housing, you've got 2003 coming up, so that'll be a little bit longer conversation. But the issue becomes, we talk about housing, we talk about affordable housing, and I go back to one party running everything in Augusta, we also pass regulation after regulation after regulation after regulation that makes the cost go up more. You can't want to drop cost and then add cost in the next breath. And that's the real problem that we have on housing. We've also had, after COVID, a huge influx into our communities, into all of Maine, of people moving in from out of state. And they sell their $1 million ranch and buy an $800,000 colonial and are excited and pay $50,000 over asking. Well, what does that do for people that live here? How do they afford to do it? And we haven't even talked about the interest rates with the cost going up on our young people. How are they ever going to afford a house? I bought my first house when I was 20. And it's 20-year-olds can't buy houses anymore. 25-year-olds can't buy houses anymore. And we keep the costs keep going up. And when we're not getting in, when it talks about workforce, we're not allowing legal immigration. I lobster and talk to a lot of the restaurants, a lot of hotel owners down Old Orchard, Scarborough, down that way. They would kill to have more people come and work. Most of the immigrants that are coming in right now can't work. So we're housing them, we're paying for them, they're not working. But we won't allow more legal immigration to come in to fill the jobs in our restaurants and hotels. And we're a tourist state. We need that workforce. And to keep allowing more people to come in that can't work, that aren't allowed to work, and that drives up housing more too. The more we subsidize housing, the more it goes up for those who pay for it. And that's another huge problem that we have. So it's a big circle that keeps going round and round. But we can't keep costing our businesses more and expect them to collect less. It's just not going to work.
Thank you so much. Al, do you need me to repeat the question?
No,
Are you
I'm good.
You
No,
to
I'm
go?
good.
Okay.
I think I can echo what Wayne and John have said about our education system. I remember when I was a kid, industrial arts, home ec, changing a tire. And I think our kids are being shortchanged, number one, because they can't do any of these things that we just took for granted. You got a flat tire, you go change it. You could have cooked your dinner because your mother's working. The housing, move on to the housing. That is a problem here because I thought that Maine was a place that everybody wants to go, but I didn't realize how many wanted to go at once. And they come from New York, and now the tax rate is more like New York, which I was trying to escape from. And now that's coming over here. So I think we have to address the housing issue. We got to get more private sector involvement. You want to train somebody, and I'll tell you a little story about bus drivers. I've dealt with bus drivers for 22 years in different states. You got to find them. I took guys out of pizza places, bars. I'm going to make you a bus driver. So maybe we need to take these kids and say, this is the path. You don't have to go to four-year college. We're going to show you how to do this, and this company's going to be backing it up. And then when you get out of that and you graduate, you're going to have a job. You're going to have a job that pays well enough that you might be able to afford a house at 25 or 20, 28. So I think we have to address those are the core issues of it. If we don't give them the tools to succeed, how do we expect them to? And that's just the common sense. I think it needs to be back how our government is. And one party rule has showed you there's no other room for any ideas that may be, contrary to what we believe in. I think you got to put every idea on the table. It doesn't matter. We're all Americans. You just put American ideas on the table, you find the best ones, and then you go with that. And then maybe one party's not happy. Well, maybe next time. But I think those are the core issues. The housing is definitely a problem. And I can see it in my own. I bought a house here in 2017. I was lucky. I got an interest rate that wasn't in the sixes. So, but I have friends who want to move out of New York because they're getting hammered. And I said, you're going to come up here and you're going to get it just about as bad. So I don't know how to deal with that yet. But I think as I learn other ideas that may increase the housing and increase it for people so they can actually buy a house eventually.
Thank you so much. All right, we'll be starting with, let's see, we'll be starting with Wayne on this one. Number 4, party lines. Do you believe in voting party lines? If so, why? If not, why?
Everybody answers this the same way. Of course, I'm not going to vote party line. One little story before I give you my full answer. Great gentleman from Waterville. I served with him on Transportation Committee. He voted against, he was a Democrat, voted against the Democrats once, and they primaried him. So whenever somebody says they're not going to vote party line, they're going to vote party line. The problem is right now, when you have one party running everything, governor, House, Senate, all the constitutional offices, there is only one person talking, and it's that party. I've been there when the Republicans controlled everything, when Governor LePage came in, we had slim majorities in both House and Senate. So if you lost one or two people, you couldn't get something through. So you still had to work with the Democrats. I've been there when the Democrats controlled the House and the Republicans controlled the Senate. You had to talk to each other or nothing passed. Sometimes most people think that's a really good thing when that happens, because if nothing passes, we're not screwing anything up. And I've been there when we've had Democrats in complete control. The issue becomes there are no discussions. There are no, is your idea better than my idea? You know, I've been fortunate. I've served all 12 years on Transportation Committee. We have very few partisan fights in Transportation Committee. We may have a handful of partisan votes all year. I had one year that I literally sat across, and Joe probably knows Ann Peoples from Westbrook, great lady, very liberal. We sat across from each other in Transportation Committee and nodded this way or did this. Every single vote that session was unanimous, because if we couldn't agree on it, we all voted against it. And so we worked together. The problem is now in the legislature, nobody's working together. And so you don't bring any ideas from the other side. Divided government stops the crazy on both sides. And I think that's what we really need to get into. So to say party line, it ends up being so far right or so far left, it's going to be party line all the time. And almost every vote is party line. I mean, you have some unanimous votes because it's, you know, is ice cream taste great? Yeah, okay, we all agree, you know, but it's stuff like that. And so, you know, that's the huge thing is divided government means everybody talks to each other. When you have one party rule, nobody's talking. And that's the problem in the state of Maine government right now.
Thank you so much. Al, do you need to repeat the question?
No,
You're
no,
good?
no,
All
I
right.
got it.
All right.
Party line number one, I think we've given these parties a little more credit than what they deserve. To me, they're a job interview. And I think as just an American citizen, these are the best we got to govern with our tax dollars. What are you spending this money? You know, and I look at that and I said, these parties have gotten way too powerful, especially the Democratic Party, which has gotten, to me, too extreme to a point of an anti-Americanism. I mean, my father was a Democrat, but he was a JFK Democrat. And I don't think that party looks anything like that time of year. And I think it's time that we put these parties back, to wrest control from the Democrats and say, we're going to put everybody's idea on here and we're going to be bipartisan. So how do you do that? You got to reach across the aisle. You got to say, look, what's best for the people that you're representing? That's got to be your first question on both sides. Is this good for the people that I'm here for? So that's what I want to do. I mean, is that going to be good for my people or not? That's going to be how I vote. What are my people benefiting from? And I think you have to have that pragmatic approach about it and just be realistic about it. Right is right and wrong's wrong. It's just, you can't spend money on things that just don't have a return. What's your return on this, on these taxpayer dollars? So we got to get more bang for the buck. And that's why I think there's a lot of that in there, probably. A lot of pork in the budget, state budget. But still learning, but.
We haven't got a say in 4 years, so we haven't got a say in 4 years.
Yeah, I know. But I know there is. And I know it needs to be redirected to maybe some of the problems like housing, education, as John and Wayne said. Those are real issues because I do have great nephews, and what kind of world am I leaving them if I never did anything for them? I never had any children, but they have to live in the world too. So what am I doing about it? Just say, hey, you're on your own? No, I don't think you can do that. I can't.
Thank you so much. John, we're on question 4. Do you have that?
Yeah, I got
Okay.
it. I'm not gonna lie, I'm probably gonna be pressing the red button a lot. Because I did see when I was in the legislature before, there's so many laws on the books, as you know. And there's a lot of people, a lot of legislators feel like they need to pass a law to have a feather in their cap. So I'm completely rethinking that this time around. But, I did notice when I was there before, I was there as a Green Independent, actually. I was the highest elected Green Independent in the country at the time. And so I was with neither party. But I did notice that the Republicans were far more permissive with their independent thinkers within their party. Whereas if you didn't vote Democrat as a Democrat, party line all the time, if you weren't a good soldier for them all the time, you would lose committee preference. You would lose things for your constituency and so forth. So a lot of Democrats were terrified to stray from their party. But no, I'm an independent thinker. I'll say the difficult things, and I'm always going to do whatever I think is best for Mainers first. And it isn't necessarily best for Mainers first that we're passing all these laws. Half of these laws on the books you can't enforce anyhow, and we go through every few years to throw a bunch of them out because they're inconsistent with one another or they're unconstitutional. But no, I'm an independent thinker, and I'll vote as I like. And, that's what we'll do.
Thank you so much. And question number 5 is similar to number 4. Do you believe in voting what your constituency asks you to vote, even if it goes against party lines and against your belief on how to vote? If so, why? If not, why? And we're starting with you.
I think John just answered it. Why, what my constituents want, is it good for them? I mean, if I have to vote against a party, I'm going to vote my conscience. As you say, what's right's right and wrong, wrong. Sometimes it may ruffle feathers. But you know what? How does it benefit my people? What am I doing for them? I'm here just give it in and they get nothing? I don't know. That's just something doesn't go well with me. But, you have to be a cooperative spirit as Americans. And this is where the two parties got to need to, we tried your one party rule. Let's try the Republican side now. Let's try some of us and put our ideas together, and we'll let you in, right? A little bit. Well, but we're not going to allow you to just run and throw our money away. And I know there's a $900 billion or $900 million hole in our budget. I had a $400,000 hole in the shuttle bus budget when I got there. And I thought I'm thinking, wow, where's that going to come from? But we got it. We found ways of doing it. You have to be creative. And the only way you do it, you have to talk to everybody. You talk to your drivers. You talk to your mechanics. You talk to everybody and all that. And that's all that needs to be done in government. It's pretty simple. Is that beneficial for all of us? You as a mayor, you as a taxpayer. And that's what I want. I just want some accountability for it. I don't want to give that old saying that I grew up in a middle class. I didn't. I grew up in a poor, similar to Biddeford Saco. It was a mill town in upstate New York. Things were tight back then. My parents, they scraped, but don't waste a dollar. So that's.
Thank you so much.
Sorry.
Do you need me to repeat the question, John, or you got that one?
Oh, which one is this?
It's number 5. It's the
Voting what your constituency asks?
yes. Yep.
Yeah, I've put in bills before that constituents have asked me to sponsor, even if I didn't agree with them. I think that's something you have to do as a legislator. I would do that, but I'll vote in my values and my best judgment. I'll put Mainers first, but I think of the recent example of where my constituents might want something that I don't agree with, or where my values aren't in that place. I saw a lot of people get really scared during COVID, but I wouldn't have supported mandating vaccines, and I wouldn't have supported closing down our schools and closing down our small businesses. I still think we need to atone for that, and a lot of businesses are still suffering. That would be like a most recent example where people maybe were really terrified to speak their mind. I would have spoken my mind, or at least I pray to God I would have spoken my mind if I were there. But I'm there to be a leader and use what I think are my skills and my analytical skills. And sometimes leadership is not, when you're leading people, as in that example that I just gave, sometimes having a level head and a cool head is, you have to use your best judgment. But like I said, I'll always take a piece of legislation or an idea or a constituent and move that forward, because I believe that that's something you should do as a legislator.
Thank you so much. Wayne? Number 5.
Yeah, I think the big thing with this one is when you elect somebody, you're electing a set of values, a set of issues, whatever it might be. And that's what most legislators go to Augusta and do. There are issues. There's issues that I've gotten 50 phone calls on, and there's issues that I've gotten 2 phone calls on. And so when the question asks, do you believe in voting what your constituent wants you to vote on? Which ones is the question. You could have 2 people call on the same issue, and one's on one side, one's on the other. So it's one of those things that it really, I tend to look at, does it benefit or hurt my district, my towns, is what I look at first. I had one issue, I voted probably against my district because of philosophy. And the philosophy was, Northern Maine wanted, and I can't remember the issue now, this was quite a while ago, but I voted because everybody in Northern Maine wanted something. And all the representatives up there, Republicans and Democrats, wanted this bill to pass. And I had a constituent call, why'd you vote for that? What'd you do that for? I can't believe you did that. And I said, because it's what the people in that area was affected by. And I says, just like I don't want Aroostook County telling York County what to do, I don't think it's right for York County to tell Aroostook County what to do. So on those issues, I tend to look at the area it's affecting, the people that it's affecting. If it's Republicans and Democrats agreeing in that area, then I would tend to support it because it's what that area wants. So it's yes, you always listen to your constituents. It just depends on how you evaluate all the stuff that comes in. And like I said, you could have 2 call, one's on one side, one's on the other. What do you do? So it's a tricky thing, but I tend to look at first, how does it affect the district and the people in the district first? And then I go from, if I get 1,000 phone calls, then it sounds like the district wants it. If you get 3, do you vote because 3 people called you and you've got 7,000 voters? It's one of those deals. So you've got to weigh it both ways.
Thank you so much. All right, we are on to question number 6. We'll be starting with John. This is a long one, so I think this is the long one. Yes, all right. So hang tight. Sunsetted property tax freeze. There's been discussion in the news lately that there may be new bills proposed to reconsider the senior property tax freeze program. What will your effort be to that if elected, to help middle-class income seniors offset the ever-increasing property tax and allow us to remain in our homes? Instead of the increase of the property tax fairness credit and property tax deferral program, why wasn't an income tax cap? That seemed to be the big reason to the sunsetting to sunsetting the freeze, consider for the property tax freeze first. As I hope you're aware, neither of the programs given to seniors or on fixed incomes helped middle-income seniors who are also struggling with increased bills. The fairness credit only helps those who receive the bare minimum SSI income. The latter, if used, actually leaves the responsibility to our children with a large interest payment tacked on. Did anyone in Augusta do the math? As an example, using the worksheet for the fairness credit, a senior could only make $5,000 a year, $416 a month, and have a $2,000 tax bill to receive the max $2,000 credit. With the minimum Social Security payment at $943 a month, or $11,316 for the year, an even larger tax bill is required to receive the $2,000 credit. Seniors making considerably less probably don't own a home or even pay property taxes. That increase did nothing to help most seniors. If reintroduced, would you be considering a reasonable cap based on middle-class senior income and cost of living if you are discussing the new freeze bill? And then they have a little asterisk, and they said, according to the Bureau of Economic Analysis, the average cost of living in Maine is a bit over $50,000 per year. So that was a long one. If you need me to repeat anything.
Could you repeat the question?
I need a drink of water. So, John, you're first.
As I said before, the property tax freeze for seniors, I think we're at a crisis moment. I saw this going door to door the past several months. And there are a lot of seniors who are losing their homes, and then those homes are lost to their families. They can't pass them down to their kids. Let's do everything we can to save, first of all, yes, we need to talk about building housing, but let's save the housing that we have now, and let's keep the Mainers that we have housed now. So yes, I would be willing to look into all of the above to expand that. Another issue that I heard from seniors who were struggling to stay in their homes, one of the reasons they were struggling to stay in their homes is because their homes were falling apart around their ears, and they were too elderly to do anything about it. And they couldn't find anybody at a reasonable price, or couldn't find any contractors at all to work on their homes and fix their homes. That was something else that pushed them into making the decision to sell their homes. And of course, once those homes are sold, as we know, people are coming here to buy up cheap properties. And once those homes are sold, we're never going to get them back. They're going to go to out-of-staters and our Mainers who work so hard their whole lives to have a home and just enjoy their golden years are going to suffer, as will their families. So yes, I would like to re-implement that property tax freeze for seniors, expand the homestead exemption and rent and property tax relief programs to cover them. And I wouldn't mind looking into tourism taxes, and this is something you might not be popular to say as a Republican candidate, but I wouldn't mind looking into getting some more taxes out of tourism so that we might be able to funnel that directly so we can benefit from what real Mainers could benefit from our tourism industry and funnel that into some property tax relief. But that's a major priority of mine. And that's as you know, it's a crisis proportions at this moment. We have to get creative about that and keep people in their homes.
Thank you so much. Wayne?
We don't have a revenue problem, we have a spending problem. Let me go back to 2013. Probably the worst thing we ever did as a legislature was doing away with the circuit breaker program.
Mhm.
The circuit breaker program helped low and middle income people. You had to apply, you would come to town hall, you would fill out one sheet. A lot of seniors, it was mainly seniors that really benefited from this program. And at the time, I think when Joe was here, I think it was 2,000, and it dropped to 1,600, I think in 2010, I believe. And it was 1,600, and we had it for 2 years under Governor LePage. And then they did away with it. And they did away with it because not enough people were applying. okay, I'm self-employed. I can make my income, whatever my income is. I probably had bad years. I could qualify. I made enough money. I would never apply for it. What they did is they took the circuit breaker, which was $1,600, which paid half of my in-laws' taxes at the time, and they dropped it. They started that the tax fairness, the fairness credit, and it went to $400. So you took seniors living on fixed incomes and dropped their benefit by $1,200 so that more people would qualify for $400. To me, that made no sense. And that's the frustrating part when things get done. I jumped up and down screaming and hollering. We weren't the majority at the time, I don't believe. And I had people come to me and say, oh no, this will be much better. This will be much better. I says, no, it won't be. This will be a disaster. And right after it passed, right after people started using it, they started getting phone calls. And they came to me and said, oh my God, I didn't realize this. I says, I told you, I knew what was going to happen. The property tax fairness credit to me is horrible. John, you've got it perfectly right. Absolutely, we should go back to the senior freeze. That bill needed to be fixed, not scrapped. And also, we had $1 billion in surplus over the last full budget and supplemental budget. And they couldn't fund this. Plenty of money for new people coming to the state, but no money for seniors that have lived here their whole life. To me, that was one of the most frustrating things that I went through in the last 2 years, that this definitely has to come back. We need to fix it. The income cap was not the only issue. There was also the issue that you could transfer your tax to another property. So I could win Powerball, or not win Powerball, but you know what I'm saying. I could sell my house in Arundel and buy Bush's estate and have my tax that I had in Arundel. That was a problem. That was going to explode because people were moving and they were carrying it over. So between the cap and that made the cost astronomical. So the bill needed to be fixed. It didn't need to be scrapped. But this, again, where we go back to one party rule, we had no say. That's why I say we got to get back to that. But this is definitely something we need to bring back. Problem is, Al mentioned it earlier, now, after going from $1 billion in surplus, now we're almost $1 billion in shortfall.
Thank you so much, Wayne. Al?
No, I go along with John and Wayne. I think our seniors, we need to keep them in their homes. Number one, the housing we have a housing problem already. Why are we going to create another one? And here's another thing that goes along with the educational side and the VOTEC side. Why can't we take some students who would say, hey, I'm going to teach you carpentry, but you're going to have a mission. You and a bunch of guys are going to go out to Mrs. Smith's house and you're going to fix it up. And you know you're going to get college credit or school credit for that, plumbing, whatever. You're going to have all these teams going out and having these kids work for the seniors.
Thanks, I forgot to finish my idea.
Well, I knew you were on the same page, but to me, that's where it starts. And then you get them situated. You got to put the freeze back on. I would like to see the veterans get a little bit more. And I'm a veteran, and I get, I would think I would get a little more. I'm not that I'm greedy or anything, but there's a lot more veterans in my area, and they're saying the same thing. Why don't we get so little? Like you said, we had $1 billion at one point. Wayne, where did that go? What were we spending that on? I want to know, because I can tell my people this is what they're spending your tax dollars on. So the VOTEC, that side of it, that I think that helps. That would help with the kids, and that gives them a good community service to serve. As the question you said, why are you here? Why are you here to serve? Well, we're here to serve. It makes you feel good anyway. We used to do that on my street when we used to have the old people and nobody mow their lawn. We'd go up there and mow it. We went up and, hey, you need a window, and they were always got some great food. But yeah, we put the freeze back in, and we got to start looking at that.
Yeah, we can co-sponsor that legislation.
I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you so much. All right, we are on to question number 7. We'll be starting with Wayne on this one. Do you agree? And then I think there was a correction on the last one, if I remember correctly. It said the Mills administration, but I don't think it was, I think this was the question where it wasn't them. Do you agree or disagree with the Mills administration recommending that seniors consider using reverse mortgages in order to pay their real estate taxes?
Absolutely not.
You good?
This is crazy. Seniors have paid property tax if they've lived here their whole life for 50 years. And now you want to take them and tell them that they need to go get a loan because we keep driving up costs for everybody? That is.
I gotta finish the rest of the question. It says, do you have other solutions, options that would help senior citizens afford to stay in their homes?
Go back to the freeze, the previous question would work out perfect. Fix LD 290 and do that. But to have seniors, and I've heard this before and it just infuriates me, that, you know, after a senior's paid tax for 40 or 50 years, now you've got to go borrow money to keep paying more taxes.
Mhm.
That's just outrageous.
That's just,
You want to know how I really feel?
Let me hear it. Al, you are next.
I couldn't say it any better than Wayne just did. That's, to me, that's crap. There's nothing more to say. Why would you paid your dues. You worked all your life. You're retired. The dignity you have that you paid for that house, to stay in that house and not be burdened by taxes being spent on, I don't know what. I mean, if I went through the budget, I'd probably be shocked at some of the things we spent money on instead of just looking at the real problems. So, yeah, I couldn't say it any better than he did. That's ridiculous.
Thank you so much. John, do you need me to repeat it or you got
I
it?
think I got this one.
All right.
Of course, absolutely not. I mean, I couldn't believe, I thought that was some SNL skit when I saw that. It's really a slap in the face to Mainers who worked their whole lives to make this state great what it is. That circuit breaker program, that was a great program. We got to bring that back. When I was in the legislature, I put in a bill to have that circuit breaker on your income tax form so you could just check the box. But I helped a lot of people apply for that circuit breaker program. But, you know, I don't think the Democrats would mind having a lot more white collar workers, liberals come in and take those houses. They're all about keeping their power. And I don't think they'd mind if our seniors would lose their homes and they would have a new voter in their place who could buy their house for a song. And yes, a program for an apprenticeship program for young people to help seniors fix up their homes as well. But no, that's a slap in the face. I couldn't even believe that was true. It is.
Thank you so much. So we are on to question number 8, and we'll be starting with Al on this one. Maine students ranked close to the bottom of national rankings, 43rd in 2024, 19th in 2018. Yet funding required to support education increases every year, a heavy burden on taxpayers. Can anything be done to link the level of funding to results?
Well, I think accountability would be the first thing. I worked for a school district. When I started transportation, I was a coordinator for a school district that I went to school with for years. And accountability of where we're spending this money on education. Why are we spending this for this when we could be teaching? And this goes back to the vocational. Why are we not putting more money into the carpenters, the electricians, the ones who are going to be needed? Not all the ones with the gender studies or whatever else you put liberal arts. I don't know. When I went to school, it was 4 shop classes, home ec, and that was pretty much your day. You had 4 shop classes. You knew how to change your tire. You got a flat tire in the thing, you changed it. Pretty much knew how to work on an engine when you went to auto shop. So I think we got to start looking at what we're spending the money on for these students per student. What does the student want? Do a little bit more investigation about what drives him, and then put the money behind him and say, this is what you want to do? Okay, you're good at this. We just got to look at where the money's going. It's got to be accountable. It's like anything, anybody's budget.
Thank you so much. John?
Well, as I said before, we need to let teachers teach and get back to teaching the basics. We've done far too many experimental programs, one after the other, whether it be Common Core or No Child Left Behind. And we've had teachers and admin chasing their tails for the past 20 years. We went around from being one of the highest ranked educated students in the country to all the way down 43rd. And so I would like us to get back to basics. None of this social emotional learning, none of the talk of DEI training and transgender. We need to get back to the basics. That all of that stuff is preparing kids for future, you know. And I also did sit on a school board, and I saw that we oversold college and college readiness to the exclusion, as we've said many times here, of the trades. We sold those kids a bill of goods, and now they have a mountain of debt, and they can't afford to leave their parents' homes. So I think we need to get money back into the classroom, get back to teaching the 3 R's, and I would like to serve on the education committee to see that through, because like I said, my wife is a teacher, and she sees what's going on in the schools, and you know, we're really in bad shape. I mean, these next generations are coming out of school that not at all prepared for the workforce in any way whatsoever. And it's just, I'd like to see us get back to that top ranking in the country. And what we need is to get money less in admin and more in the classroom. And also, you know, we have a lot of behavioral issues, and we need to address that. You know, I don't think kids should be taking cell phones into the classroom. My wife spends most of her time just taking cell phones away from kids, and she says she'll sit that cell phone on her desk and watch that kid, you know, jonesing like they're a crack addict to get that phone back. I don't even know why we ever allowed to have those phones in the classroom. They're disrupting learning mightily, and so yeah, we need to get education back to basics, and that's what I need to do. Should I be elected?
Thank you so much. Wayne?
Well, I'll go to the last part first. Can anything be done to link the level of funding to results? Wouldn't that be a great idea? Except we tried, and we couldn't get high schools to pay when a child graduated high school and then had to pay for remedial English and math in college. Couldn't even get that passed. It's frustrating. It's, you know, the whole thing about the things going on in the classroom today. I was talking to somebody today, and I says, you know, when I was in school, I never knew what my teachers' political views were. And that's all we hear about today. And it's shameful that, you know, we're graduating kids. I can't remember who it was. I saw this quote on Facebook, and they were talking about 100 years ago, we were teaching high school kids Latin and Greek. And today, we're teaching college kids English. Something's wrong, you know, but it goes back to control and who's controlling everything that's going on right now. And if the same people stay in control, nothing's going to change. And it's sad. And I tell every young person now, talking about the trades and stuff like that, go be an electrician, go be a plumber, go be a carpenter. You're going to make more than lawyers and doctors because you're going to be able to write your own ticket. For every 5 tradespeople retiring, we have 2 replacing them. If we don't change this, and what I've always, and the universities get mad at me, but I always bring up all the money we fund to send to the universities, the state, I think we need to be sending it to our community colleges for trades programs. Start reversing that. You know, those kids can come out of a 2-year school with virtually no debt, and they're doing free college for those kids now. Go there, get your trade, and start your own business in 2 years or 3 years or whatever. You know, I mean, you're going to be able to write your own ticket. And I tell every young person that, you know, go to that, be a truck driver, you're going to make more without hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. But I wish we could tag the results together, but we tried to make that one little step to force the schools that graduated kids and then they couldn't do math or science and math or English and had to take remedial classes, and that wouldn't pass. So frustrating.
Thank you so much. We're on to question 9, and we'll be starting with John. This is another school-related question. School imbalance on education due to funding. For instance, 75 other classes are offered at other schools that cannot be offered at RSU 57 due to lack of space and lack of funding and lack of teachers, which leads to the question of why should teachers and bus drivers be paid more in other districts, giving those districts an advantage? Doesn't that give those districts an advantage over the other? All of these things create an imbalance in the educational system. Better teachers, better classes, no worries about making it to school with buses actually always running. Better tech, better labs, more classes and vocational opportunities. In our own very elementary schools, the music classroom is actually on a cart that they roll into the room where the students are to be taught. How do you fix these things without burdening the towns that are already overtaxed at 70% of their taxes already going to the schools, or 70 cents on the dollar, I think it is.
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of this comes, my wife is a teacher over at Kennebunk High School, but even though they're among the top ranked in the state, her pay is lower than that of some other local communities. I know a lot of this has to do with local decision making and local school boards and bargaining and so forth. When it comes to the lack of space, I'd be more than happy to work with school administrators at RSU 57 to talk about what they need to address that. But I think a lot of that is up to, local school boards. I do support local control in that way. But again, I couldn't agree more with talking about, a lot of our classroom behavior is gone off the rails. Space issues, I can't necessarily address that. But I think that we just need to get education back to basics, and I'd be happy to work with the local administrators to talk about what it is with their space issues. When it comes to the busing, I've heard about that. I know that there's some days when buses simply aren't running. I'd like to look at more creative options to talking to some seniors and maybe even talking to some former high school students themselves, and get creative about getting bus drivers. That's just hard to believe that we don't have drivers enough that there are some days you can't even get kids to school. But I'd be happy to work with local administrators on that. And I did reach out to the administrators in my town to talk about how we can get bus drivers, because I know that's a big issue.
Thank you so much, Wade.
Yeah, this isn't just an education issue. It's a problem in every business throughout the state. This question's about education, but this is an overall on workforce, on getting more truck drivers, oil truck drivers, bus drivers, everything. There's always going to be an imbalance. In the EPS formula, smaller communities get paid more depending on all the formulas they use than, say, Cape Elizabeth or Scarborough, or pick your bigger affluent town. The issue becomes those taxpayers are willing to pay almost any amount of money to pay more. So even though the EPS formula is less, they always seem to be able to come up with more money because they have the money to come up with. And so it's like in highway, we have a local, a municipal partnership where if a town wants to do a road that's not scheduled for DOT to do the road for 5 years, but the town wants it done, then the town can put in 50% and the state will put in 50% and the town can do the road and the state will pick up half. The state doesn't mind that because they'd be paying 100% 5 or 6 years from now. The issue becomes smaller towns like ours here, Lyman, Dayton, Arundel. We don't have huge amounts of budgets. On the other hand, a town like Kennebunk has a lot more money. So they're able to they did a municipal partnership on the other end of 35 down by the turnpike. So there's going to be an imbalance. We just got to figure out how to change. And I've had the EPS formula explained to me 50 times, and it changes every time it's explained. So I don't know if they know how it works, but bus drivers is a huge problem. I was talking to a local bus driver the other day, and he was out sick, and his bus didn't run. I don't know how we got to this place. I just don't know how we got there. I've suggested in the past, kind of just spitballing, throwing stuff against the wall, on seeing if you could get a cooperation with local construction contractors, where they might be able to loan a couple drivers in the morning, and maybe a different company could loan a couple drivers in the afternoon, and possibly fill some holes. And when school is out, those drivers go to work, those bus drivers would be willing to go to work for those companies, because usually summertime's busier, school isn't in session. So, you might be able to do something like that on the bus driver side. But it's the whole funding formula is a mess, and smaller communities just get crushed because they don't have the tax base. And they are getting more in state funding, but you've got that tax base in those big communities.
Thank you so much. Al?
Well, I think I can talk to the bus drivers, but I want to talk about what you got to look for is that some of these kids, why can't you take an idea of working back and forth like Dayton Sand and Gravel, which I did with the shuttle bus. Take some of these kids who want to be bus drivers or a truck driver and then put them into that. And that would be something where you would have a revolving door, so you wouldn't have to spitball it. And that would work there. You're right about the funding. If you don't get funding, you're not going to have good programs. But I think you got to scour what you have that does work. You got to look at every program and what does work and what doesn't work. If you're going to be throwing money down a black hole, why would you do that? If you don't have a program where you have 2 people who want it, where you have a program that has 8 people here. So you need to focus that, and that way you'll just squeeze out the money and make it more directed to what your needs are, whether it be bus drivers or whatever, vocational type of stuff. That all goes in. I would love to work with you on a bill like that and get these kids involved, even if they want to be truck drivers. Some of them want to be truck drivers, I'm sure. What do truck drivers make like 90 to 110, isn't it? So I think we need to look within ourselves in our school district and start giving people merit. Look at their merit and say, how can I educate this guy to succeed, or this woman, whatever. We just have to look at it more and where we're spending our money. It just comes down to that.
Thank you so much. All right. We're on to question 10. We'll be starting with Wayne on this one. The state of Maine with LD 2003 is encouraging/mandating that towns change their zoning ordinances to allow for denser and more affordable housing. However, the state is not providing towns with assistance and/or funding to efficiently accomplish these goals. In addition, the state does not appear to be assisting in managing the effects of increased housing and resident population on the public school system and other infrastructure like traffic, roads, etc. There does not appear to be any coordination with the state counties at the RSUs. As a result, it appears that each town is on its own to change their zoning ordinances to comply with state mandates. What is your position on providing state funding to assistance in complying with the state mandate, specifically and more broadly with other state mandates that appear to be unfunded? Were you in favor of LD 2003, and did you think that the $100,000 for funding divided amongst all the towns and cities was enough money? And I think I mentioned at the other candidate night, for instance, even Lyman, I'm on the comprehensive committee, a plan for the comprehensive to have done is $30,000. So $100,000 across all the cities and towns, I think we'd get 700. So we're starting with Wayne.
I'll start with near the end. I voted against this because I knew how bad it was for small towns like Lyman, Dayton, and Arundel. It's big cities pushing their problems onto little communities. I don't think I've ever voted for a state mandate that wasn't funded. I just don't believe, when there's a mandate on it, I say no, because they're trying to override the mandate. I've been philosophically against that. I might have voted for one sometime, but I don't remember. But this whole 2003, in theory and in areas that places like the big problem with the bill wouldn't affect the smaller communities because you need water and sewer. So the big problems wouldn't affect us. But
Just an aside, we were told that septic system is,
it's not.
okay, cool.
Yeah. Yeah. They're trying to push
Piper
that
today.
on because the septic system is private and says public. And, but was whole part of the whole affordable housing. And everybody that got up on this bill, people from Kennebunkport, people from Camden, and people from Cape Elizabeth, and representatives from Portland, and all communities. And I got up and I said, there's not going to be affordable housing in any, I listed all the people that got up and spoke, and I said, there's not going to be affordable housing there. I mean, the cost is so much to live there now, you would never, I asked them, what was your definition of affordable housing? What's it going to be in Kennebunkport or Cape Elizabeth or Freeport or Camden? And I also said, my parents left Portland in 1963 after I was born because it wasn't affordable. It's not something new. And they're trying to make it. And I talked to the Portland representatives. I said, you want more housing and more affordable housing in Portland? You've got to be willing to go up. And they're not willing to go up. So their idea is, then let's push it out. And that's pushing it out to places like here. And so I was vehemently against the bill because I looked at it as I went back to a previous question, how does it affect the district? How does it affect our towns? Do we need more housing? Yes. But make it reasonable. Stop all the regulations that's driving the cost up. And do more senior housing. Why we're the oldest state in the country, why we're not doing more senior housing is amazing. We don't build 2-bedroom ranches anymore. We build 4-bedroom colonials. And they wonder why the cost is $600,000 or $800,000. I mean, that's why you're not going to have affordable housing unless you build affordable housing. And so I think senior housing is a huge part of this. I think I talked to people here in Lyman and in Dayton and Arundel. I said, if you can put senior housing in, with senior housing, there's no school cost. So you collect the taxes and don't have to pay for students. So it's a huge benefit to the towns. But this whole bill was a mess. And like I said before, it was one that I looked at that hurt the district. And that's why I voted against it.
Thank you so much. Al?
Okay, I'm not too familiar with LD 2003, but I go along with Wayne about senior housing and stuff like that. I know there was something on Arundel near the dump. They wanted to put some multi-housing, monthly units off of road. I don't know. Remember that was up there. And I said, no, that's exactly what he's saying. They're going to push out to our areas. Now, is that going to be beneficial for us? Probably not, because that's going to be more resources we have to put for them. Sewer, water, all those things that we got to invest in. Where's that money going to come from? So I, as much as I know about LD 2003, I would have voted the same way we did.
Thank you so much. John?
Same here. I think it was a terrible idea. We need to mitigate it. I'd like to work with local selectmen to do what we can to correct this. I don't think it was a good bill. I support local control and I don't support unfunded mandates. And I think I love rural Maine, and I think people move to a town because of the character of the town, and town should be able to have a say about the character of their town and what they want their town to look like. No, I wouldn't support it, and I will work with our local selectmen here and to mitigate this in whatever way we can, because it was a pretty bad bill.
Thank you so much. All right, we're on to question number 11. We have 2 left to go here. So we'll start with you, Al, on this one. What do you view as the best thing to come out of the State House to help the people of Maine in the past year? And what was the worst thing?
I don't know. I can't think of anything best that's happened because it seems like it's been going downhill out of there. But the worst thing to come out of the State House, I think, is the property tax that we were just talking about a little while ago, and how they're stopping where seniors are putting more pressure on our seniors and people who need to stay in their houses. I think that's the worst thing to come out of there. I don't like that we're 43rd in the school districts. I don't like that. That came out. I think at one point we were 12, as I looked at a few years ago, wasn't it?
We were one.
Well,
We were 1 back in.
Back in the
well,
90s.
yeah, but we started dropping there. Why wasn't something done then? You're saying you went from 1 to 12. What's the problem? We need to go look at this. So that's how I feel about it. I mean, we just need to look at everything and see what's really going on. We need transparency in everything, in education, in housing. We got to help our seniors stay in their houses and build more houses. We got to find a way to do it without upsetting the rural towns and not putting pressure on them. And then the city's got to step up too. You have more space. You have more large buildings. Why can't you make something 10 stories? Because it looks like they probably think it looks like some kind of Cabrini Green or something in Chicago. But I don't think so. I don't think you have to have it that way. You can make it so it's functional and let the people be proud of where they are. So those are the things that like I said, that's the worst thing I got on there. Nothing good has came out. I know a $900 million budget shortfall's come out of there, so that's going to be the worst.
All right, thank you so much. So we're, John,
Well,
best and worst.
yeah, it's a little bit more challenging to say, oh, there's my wife and my new son, that's Matt, my daughter, stuff. You guys. I think it's, well, there's one really monstrous bill that came out of the legislature in the last session. It's LD 227. It was a bill that allowed abortion up until birth without any medical guardrails. There's pro-choice and then there's pro-abortion, and that bill is just pro-abortion. And LD 1619 was it? And but this other bill too that started out as a concept draft 227 made Maine a trans sanctuary state, which it's even hard to say, but it allows that a relative of somebody from another state, a child, can bring a child into this state and get them so-called gender affirming care. And they can do that, take them away from the parents, and local law enforcement is not even allowed to intervene as the law is written on behalf of those parents. So I can't think of anything worse than that. And I'll do everything I can to reverse that. That was passed in the dark of night when after thousands of people came and spoke against it, because it's just a hideous bill. And now it's a law in the state, and chokes me up really. But my predecessor, Heidi Sampson, did work on a bill to make it so that it'd be easier for children to get services for disabled children, to get OT and so forth through Maine Care and with the schools. I think that was a good bill. Our child is, he said he had spina bifida and he may be disabled, so that's something certainly will be of interest to us in the future. And that was a good bill that Heidi Sampson put forth. I thank her for doing that. But I think it's harder to choose something good than it is to choose something bad that's been going on. And that's why I'm running.
Thank you so much, John. Wayne?
Yeah, I'll go back to the bipartisan effort on the sustainable funding for transportation and getting that 40% of the sales tax moved into highway fund. It was the first step in many years of trying to get long-term sustainable funding in. And as I said before, if we can get to 100%, that will be fully funding highways. The worst, there was plenty of worst. But I will go with the two budgets that Republicans were kept out of. When you don't have input from all sides, nothing good comes out of it. And what has come out of it is going from $1 billion in surplus to now $1 billion in shortfall. And how we got there is we passed two budgets, a regular budget and a supplemental budget, spent almost $1 billion of extra money. And because you have to balance the budget. What was also done is hundreds of other bills were passed. And then the Democrats on the Appropriations Committee pulled all the money off, but still passed all the bills. So all the laws went into statute, which means all the funding needed for those bills are in the next budget or have to be accounted in the next budget. So that's why you have a $950 million shortfall. And so to me, the fiscal irresponsibility and the spending that's going on, my last budget, I served 8 years and then was termed out. In my last budget in 2018, that year, the budget was just over $7 billion. We were almost at $11 billion this year. Next year will be 11 and a half or 12 in that short period of time. As I said before, we don't have a revenue problem, we have a spending problem. And with all that extra revenue, we had to scrap the senior housing freeze. To me, that was shameful. And that may be the worst thing, was doing away with that. But it was part of the budget, and that's how they were able to get rid of it. So there's just I think that is the big takeaway from this last session is Republicans had no say. And all this money got spent and all the deficits are still here to come. And the next people going to the legislature are going to have to fix it somehow.
All right, thank you so much. So final question, John, this will go to you. What do you see as the state's priorities over the next 4 years?
Well, not to sound like a broken record, but we got to get our education back to basics. We've got to reinvigorate the trades, and we've got to make sure that we can keep the Mainers that are in housing, in their housing, starting with seniors. Got to bring back that senior property tax freeze and do everything we can to make it so that Mainers can stay in their homes and get our kids into the trades so that they can afford a home. And those are the things I'm going to put my mind to and my muscle to over the next 4 years and restore common sense in Augusta. And as Wayne has said repeatedly, to have some balance. We need to have more Republicans up there so that we can have some balance and some common sense. And that's what I'm going to do.
All right, thank you so much, John. Wayne?
Yeah, I think, like I've said several times, one of my priorities is going to be transportation infrastructure, like it's been my entire time in Augusta. We also, another issue that's really hitting everybody is electricity costs. We've got to figure out something on that. As a lobsterman, we're not too happy with offshore wind and covering the entire Gulf of Maine with windmills. It wouldn't affect me directly, but it would affect everybody that goes out there. And if they can't go out there, then it would affect me because they'll all be inside. So that's a huge issue for my industry, our industry. Housing is going to be an ongoing problem for a long time. I don't know if how we're gonna slow the increase in cost of the way housing is going up when we continue to have more and more people move in and are willing to pay $50,000 over asking. It's just making it really, really hard. And it's market forces and nothing you can do about that. It's just trying to get more housing in. And I go back to the senior housing aspect. And if we can get more senior housing, seniors can sell their current houses, and that's the whole additional supply. So I think that will help us, on that. But I think that's the main thing. And we've got to stop spending. We just continue to spend our grandchildren into oblivion. And if we don't start giving some back to the taxpayers when we have lots of revenue, what are we going to do when we don't have any revenue? Or what are we going to do at that point? You can't always take and never give any back without having consequences down the road.
Thank you so much.
Well, where do you start, really? You got to start about the senior housing thing. That's got to come back. I mean, these are issues that transparency. We just need to, what I want to do is go up there and show me the books. Show me what we're spending money on. And here's a problem. Here's an issue that maybe we need to redirect and reprogram that money. I know dealing with the FTA and transportation infrastructure is important. And Wayne knows how it is. If you're $1 off by the FTA, you're going to have investigators in there. You know what I mean? I managed millions of dollars of grants, but they knew where it was. And that's what we need to do. And I want to go up there and see what we're spending our money on. Like, it's not a revenue problem. It's a spending problem. What are we spending it on? What are we not seeing? How is my district benefiting from that spending? Or is somebody else's district benefiting more? So, it's going to be, if I'm elected, it's going to be a new thing for me, but it's going to be a fresh set of eyes. And you got to know. Everybody, I want to know as a citizen of this area where my money's going. We can't keep these property taxes going up. We got to get the electricity costs down. I looked at my bill the other day, it almost shocked me. So why are we not addressing these problems as opposed to problems that mean nothing? That's our school district, education and gender studies and all that stuff. And the things I've heard, and I'm not sure how all of them are true, but we need to get back, like you said, John, to reading, writing, arithmetic, teaching our kids to be electricians, carpenters, plumbers, bus drivers. And let's find out where we're spending that money. Why don't we just redirect that to something like that? Maybe that'll show some better results than what we're getting now.
Thank you so much. So now we're down to closing statements. Before that, I want to thank you, gentlemen, for coming this evening. It's been a pleasure up here getting to ask you all questions. Thank you so much. So we're going to start with Wayne for closing. You get 3 minutes to close yourself on it.
Well, I want to thank you, Michelle, and I want to thank Joe for making this possible for the citizens of Lyman to get to see the candidates. You got to see the other three earlier in the month, and now us here. I think everybody talks about how important elections are. I just think that we need to have balance in Augusta. There are no checks and balances right now. And we need to bring some common sense back. And if we don't, we just all need to look in the mirror and say, why is everything going up? Why is housing through the roof? Why is electricity through the roof? Why can't our children stay here? And we've got to make changes. We've got to bring everybody on board. We can't continue to just have one party rule everything and not listen to half the state. And that's what's happening today. And we've got to change that. And I'm hoping, I've been very fortunate. My good friends here in Lyman have supported me in all 7 of my previous elections. I've actually lost the other 2 towns once, but I've been most fortunate with everybody here in Lyman, and I thank you for that. And I hope you'll consider supporting me again on either vote early before Thursday or go out next Tuesday and make your voices heard. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And now, Al, for you.
Well, I'm the newcomer, and I don't know what I can bring is a service. I still believe it's a service, and that's why I'm going up there. If you elect me, I mean, I'm up there, and I'm not up there for any reason. I never was a politician, never thought about it. But at some point in your life, you got to look at what's going on in what kind of world you live in, and what kind of world you leave into your family. And I could have just relaxed, but you know what? I'm pretty fed up with what's going on in this area, now that I've been, here 8 years. I want to know what's going on more, and that's going to be up to me to learn, the learning curve to go up there, but I'm going to ask a lot of questions, and why are we doing this and why are we doing that? So, I mean, I'm going to get to know, hopefully, a few, if you elect me, I'm going to get to know you a little more personally, and I don't mind that at all, so. But right is right. You can't just take my money or your money and just squander it. I want to know what the return is. Why are we spending it if we're not going to get anything back? That doesn't make sense to me. So those questions need to be asked to the people who basically build the budgets.
Thank you so much. And John?
I'd like to echo thanks to Joe and Michelle for putting on this great forum and giving us a chance to talk to the voters here in Lyman. I'd like you to consider voting for me, please. I think a vote for me is a vote for common sense. You've heard about what my issues are. And I also want to thank everybody for all their thoughts and prayers and support, and for my Republican colleagues, their support. And we scheduled it this way because they were working around me because I was in the hospital with Max, and I really do appreciate you guys doing that. And I appreciate people coming out another time so that they could hear us talk. I'll always put Mainers first. I'll always vote for common sense, and I'll do everything I can to restore common sense in Augusta. And I hope that you consider voting for me. And I know that we didn't make room for questions here, but if anybody has any questions, they can call me at eaterforrep. They can email me at eaterforrep@gmail.com, or you can give me a call 207-283-5729, and I'd be glad to answer your questions and talk to you. And thank you for coming out, and I thank you, please, for your vote.
All right. Thank you all very much for coming up tonight. And thank you.
Joe?
Good job, everyone.
Is that all for you, so that's good?
What's that?
I do it. You always go.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Wait.